Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. In today's video, I'm really excited to be able to take a look at the all-new Transformers Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Leader Class GRINDOR with Ravage. Finally, more Bayformers to add to our collection after almost a year, I believe, since the last live-action Leader Class, which was the Constructicon Overload, which of course concluded the mighty ROTF Devastator. Honestly, I really hope Hasbro begin putting out more live-action figures, as, don't get me wrong, I think the 86 movie figures are fantastic, but for me, nothing beats getting a Michael Bay figure. I know that will be very controversial for many, but I just absolutely love the designs. They're so nostalgic for me, and I think they are all really well done. Of course, GRINDOR, for the most part, is just a repaint of the Studio Series Blackout, so for those of you who already own that figure, this guy here may not be all that exciting for you, but of course, GRINDOR was essentially just an almost clone of Blackout. I believe there were some differences, but to be fair, we never really got a great look of the character to really notice them, so I personally am really happy to just finally fill out that void in the collection and really complete our Revenge of the Fallen Forest Battle collection. Before we take a look at GRINDOR, of course, we'll start off with his brand new minifigure, that being Ravage. I know there have been many that have been really after this particular release, especially considering we never got him packaged with the Satellite movie Soundwave, and this guy really does look pretty decent, especially considering his scale. You can see a super nice metallic silver used there for the head. I think the sculpt works turned out exceptionally well. You can see some excellent looking spinal detailing, as well as the two cannons which situate here on the back, and that really awesome endoskeleton-esque type of tail, and we've even got some nice detailing here for the legs. He is quite well articulated, so all of the legs are on ball joints, so can move forwards and backwards as well as hinge out to the sides, and we also do get some tail articulation, but this is mainly for storage in the copter mode. You can see that this section can hinge back and forth, so a really nice inclusion and really helps to fill out some of those live action movie minion voids in our collection. For a very quick comparison, here we have Ravage compared next to Blackout's minion, that being Scorponok. So you can see the scale is definitely significantly smaller than this guy, but I think the detail is still just as good. And it's really cool to finally have these. Of course, you could bring in your ROTF Satellite Soundwave and deploy him.
Decepticons, we have located the shard.
And of course, you'd deploy onto Earth in pursuit of the shard. But taking a look here at GRINDOR, how awesome does this figure look? I've always thought that Blackout was one of the best Studio Series Leader Class figures that we've ever gotten, and GRINDOR here is just as good, if not better, considering that he does have some refinements made to the mold in order to make him just a little more enjoyable when posing. The main body, however, is of course that of Blackout. I maybe would have liked to have seen them include some new alternative pieces just to boost him in terms of scale, but he is a pretty big leader as it is, so I imagine that probably would have significantly increased the price to maybe that of a Commander class figure, but nevertheless, you can see here the paintwork looks really well done. If we just bring him in here for a closer look, you can see there the head sculpt looks fantastic. So much sculpted in detailing going on here, picked out with a superb metallic silver. You can see the really awesome red beady eyes. Some of the main differences here for GRINDOR are of course that we have these grey highlights around the torso region, as well as some of these yellow highlights around the actual windows, which once again you'll see more when we actually get him into the helicopter mode. We also have some really nice looking rust detailing at the top section of this rotor piece, so you can see there that looks really well done, and it's actually a lot better looking to me than the Dark of the Moon Leader Megatron. I think they've captured the rust perfectly here, and as we spin around here to the back, you can see we've got the rotor blade, which is definitely a lot looser in comparison to Blackout, but I actually don't mind that at all. When we see GRINDOR land in the forest, this section here is constantly rattling around as he's trying to take down Sam Witwicky and of course Optimus Prime. You can see we've got some nice rust detailing for the forearms, as well as that USAF logo, which I think looks super cool. You can see some nice red highlights around this section, which I believe is what they actually use in order to fuel the helicopter in real life. We've got the same propeller blade, which is, I guess, parts forming, but I don't think this is too bad at all. It can, of course, spin, and you can see some nice rusted detailing there. I think the colour of gunmetal that they've used for the biceps and for the lower section of the thighs looks really well done. It complements the lighter shade of grey impeccably well, and you can see some superb looking sculpted in detailing. Really impressive looking leader figure. We've got some nice rust detailing here for this panel and some silver, and if we just turn him here to a side perspective, you can really begin to appreciate all of that magnificent looking sculpt work that Hasbro and Takara Tomy packed into this figure. After not getting a decent Blackout or GRINDOR for years, they definitely delivered with this leader in my opinion. I remember being so excited to get that original Studio Series Blackout, as that was honestly one of my holy grails to actually obtain in the collection, and I think here with GRINDOR it looks just as good. Really impeccable looking sculpt work here. And of course, one of the main differences here with GRINDOR is that we now have fully articulated, much more improved hands. These look fantastic. We'll bring Blackout Blackout in for a comparison later on in the review, but honestly, it's like Hasbro have taken essentially the DNA design upgrade kit and slapped it onto this figure. These look so much better. We no longer have the Muppet hands. These are fully articulated and just look so much more accurate to how he appeared in the movie. And I wouldn't put it past Hasbro to actually reissue Blackout later down the line and give him these new alternate hands, as I really think for those that missed that character out, that would be a nice way for them to get probably the better version of the character. You can see there some nice looking sculpt work. I think it's turned out impeccably well. As far as articulation is concerned, we get a ball joint here at the head, which can look up and down. It can of course look left to right. We do get butterfly joints here at the shoulders, although this is mainly a fault in the actual engineering, as this tab doesn't really lock in that securely, but it still does help aid some poses. We get hinge joints here forwards and backwards, as well as a hinge joint out to the sides, rotation here at the bicep, 90-degree range of motion here at the elbow, full rotation at the wrists finally, as well as these two fingers which can articulate together, and the thumb too is on its own independent hinge joint. We don't get any form of waist rotation, although the legs are on ratchet joints, so can kick forwards and backwards, but are slightly restricted due to this panel. We do get double joints here at the knees due to the nature of the design in order to chicken leg him, so these can be extended or compressed. We also do get a thigh rotation, and finally here for the feet, I think he has one of the best ankle rocker joints out of the live action movie figures so far, so this can pivot forwards, backwards and rock side to side to a fantastic degree. So overall, I'm thoroughly impressed. Despite this guy being merely just a simple repaint and of course slight retool, I think he's turned out exceptionally well, and I'm really hoping that Hasbro begin to release more of these almost clones, as of course there were quite a few of them in the live action movies, especially as we began to get into Age of Extinction and The Last Knight. And here, recreating one of the best live action movie battle sequences out of the 5 Michael Bay movies that we got, here we have the Forest Battle. We've got the Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime with the dual blades. We've got Starscream, ROTF Megatron, and of course Grindor. And who can forget Sam Witwicky running around shouting Optimus. Here you've got Optimus about to take them all on, looking so awesome. And I'm just so happy that in 2021, 12 years almost after Revenge of the Fallen hit the silver screen, we're still getting some fantastic figures for the movie line. I honestly cannot wait to see where this line takes us next. I'd love to get more Dark of the Moon characters, just fill out some of the voids. The Fallen would just complete the ROTF movie line in my opinion. And of course we've got so many characters from those final Michael Bay movies such as Age of Extinction and The Last Knight yet to go, and I think Grindor here is just such a great addition. You can just imagine Optimus Prime throwing one of the blades into his shin and then of course jumping on his head and ripping it clean off with his battle hooks. I'm actually hoping they re-release that Studio Series 32 Optimus Prime with some battle hooks, as that would be so awesome. But definitely super glad to have Grindor here in the collection, if you haven't guessed already, from this really cool diorama. Here for a Blackout and Grindor comparison. As stated earlier on in the review, these guys really are essentially the same mold. It is merely just the hands which differ, and I've got to say just how much better Grindor looks when in comparison to Blackout. You can see that with Blackout we've got those very Muppet-esque hands, but this was the first leader to grace the Studio Series, so Hasbro was still really refining the movie designs, and this was exceptional for its time. You can see here that we've got some nice detailing for the hands. The sculpt is exactly the same, other than that we merely just have more paint apps here for Grindor, and I do actually prefer the colour variation, especially where that gunmetal plastic is concerned for the thighs and the biceps. Blackout here looks slightly cheaper as far as aesthetic is concerned, and just comparing the rotor blades, you can see that we don't have as much paint here on Grindor, although I believe that to be probably accurate to how he appeared in the movie, despite not getting a great look at the character. And for those wondering as to whether or not the DNA design upgrade kit is in fact compatible here with Grindor, it is, but of course you needed to utilise these hands in order to actually tab on this new propeller blade, and now of course that he has these hands, it's not going to be the greatest fit. It will peg on there, but you do run the risk of actually stretching out that grip, so I personally wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but you can utilise the EMP blaster that pegs into the chest, as well as the 2 arm cannons that he also had in the movie. Now, turning to transformation here for Grindor, if you transform Blackout, you'll know exactly what to do here with this guy. There are some differences due to the articulated fingers, but really, it's nothing that you're going to get a headache over. So, remove the tail blade here, and just extend this section and set this here off to the side. I like to come here to the arms personally and begin untabbing all of this. We can collapse the hands in and just fold them. They fold in the exact same way as Blackout, and repeat the same process here for this side. So just fold that in like so. We can then spin around here to the back, and you're going to want to take this tail section, extend this out, and then take this region and pull it away from the body, completely extending it. We can then proceed to straighten that out until it clips into place, fold this section out as well until that also snaps in. We can then come here to the lower region, straighten the legs out here. We can then pull down on this section, spin this around, snap that into place, take this here and snap that in there. I also then like to fold out the wheel just so that I don't have to do it later on in transformation, and then just extend that, rotate this section around as well, and snap that into place, and once again just fold that section out. We'll then want to take this section at the thigh, rotate this in so that the shins are now facing inwards, and come here and repeat the same process. We can then take this lower torso section, disengage it from the main body, fold this front plate forwards, and then ratchet the legs all the way forwards, just like this, and come here to this side and repeat the same process. We can then push all of this here to the back so that we are left with something along the lines of this. Try your best to keep everything lined up appropriately, and you can see that we have a tab there that will in fact peg into this slot. But before we do that, you're going to want to take these panels. These tiny little holes will in fact facilitate these pegs, so snap them into place, and then we can then take this front torso plate, pull this forwards, and then proceed to collapse Grindor's head into the hollow cavity. And as you do this, it will in fact fill out this section that we've got down here. Take the front wheel, fold that forwards. We can then take this section of the cockpit, flip this here forwards as well, and then that's when you can compress this tab into that hollow space. So just snap that in there. Come here to this side, straighten this out if it has unfortunately collapsed, and then just proceed to align all of this up appropriately. And already you can see some of the really nice decals that we have here on the side, such as the Marines, which is in fact different to what we got with Blackout. So snap that one in there as well. Into place. You'll then want to spin this around to the side and just ensure that everything here is tapped in appropriately. So snap all that in. He definitely had one of the more complex Wave 1 conversions. We can then take this armpit joint, disengage this and extend this, bring this section here to the back, fold this around, and this tab will of course peg into this slot, so just snap that in there and extend this panel over and push this in as well, and then just overlap that in and tab all of this here into place. Spin around here to this side and repeat the exact same process. So rotate here at the bicep, snap that into place, take this section here and tuck that under and peg that in there as well. Then we can make sure that everything here at the top stays tabbed in, bring these sections down and apply quite a reasonable amount of pressure. I have found that here, at least on my copy, these are slightly looser when in comparison to Blackout. Of course, this guy is quite an old mold now. I believe the original Blackout came out in 2019, so 2 or 3 years ago. And then what we can do is take these sections, angle these here to the back, fold out the propeller. We can then spin here to the side, take the propeller blade, and just snap this section here into place. Try your best not to explode the entire back section here of Grindor. And there we have Revenge of the Fallen Grindor fully transformed up into his really awesome looking copter mode. This looks exceptional. Once again, I do believe that the actual copter they used in the ROTF movie was slightly different when in comparison to Blackout, but you really don't see it all that much in the film to notice any differences, and to me this more than fills in that void. So as far as details are concerned, the main plastic is exactly the same, the cast of grey that they've used, but we do get some really nice paint applications. So we've got some nice yellow once again around these sections. We've got that 53 here at the front instead of the 4500X that Blackout was. The Decepticon insignia slap bang here in the center, just so that you know who he's affiliated with. And you can see here for the side, we've got the Marines as well as that USAF logo 53. We've got some nice decals such as Danger, Keep Away, as well as that red light here at the top in order to, of course, signal that this guy is in fact flying, especially in dark lighting conditions. And as we turn here to the underside, if I just compress the propeller blade, you can see that he does fold up in the exact same way. Now, this region is slightly modified in order to actually accommodate Ravage now. So, in order to compress him into this cavity, you just want to extend all those out. And you can see the circular port that we've got there on the belly. This will just snap into the base And there you've got Ravage fully stored away inside the base section here of Grindor. It would have been nice if they could have added an additional layer just to conceal this area, but once again, that probably would have required too much retooling, which honestly isn't all that necessary, and it may have compromised the look of him in robot mode. But the propeller does spin really nice and freely, something which the original Blackout figure was unable to do. If you will recall, it was a lot stiffer, so couldn't spin as freely. And of course, the tail blade here can also spin as well, so you can have them spinning in conjunction with one another. And I think it's such an awesome leader class figure. As mentioned, he's one of my favourite from the Studio Series line, and this guy definitely is up there. For that Grindor and Blackout helicopter size comparison, I have once again compressed the rotor blades just to show them in their full entirety, as these guys do become massive. You can see they are near enough exactly the same. It is merely just the paint which differs here, and I do actually prefer the paint that we get on Grindor. He gets a lot more, but that's probably down to him being essentially just a repaint. They didn't have to, of course, fork out for the engineering that they did here with Blackout, but some nice detailing going on here at the front. You can see the differences as far as the gunmetal is concerned, and I think the yellow highlights to the windows really does make all the difference. We've got some nice red paint apps there for this section, as well as the Decepticon insignia. And as we spin around here to the side, you can see the differences as far as the decals are concerned. So for Blackout, we merely just had the USAF logo, whereas this time we've got a much darker, much larger, and much bolder version with the Marines as well as the 53. And instead of having the almost cream paint that we got here for this window, we've got black, which is a lot more realistic. And you can see the differences here for the tail blades. We don't have Blackout and we don't have Grindor on this one. It is just the Danger Keep Away. So there are some less decals and some more decals. I guess it really just depends on where you look for this guy. And as we turn our attention here to the underside, which may be quite a difficult comparison to actually show given how large these figures are, you can see the differences in the cavities. So Grindor's is a lot more hollowed out when in comparison to Scorponok, but Scorponok was a lot broader of a character, so of course took up much more room. But definitely a really, really cool looking figure. I'm so glad to add him to the collection as mentioned before, and I think he's turned out really, really nice. So there was my review for Transformers Studio Series, Revenge of the Fallen, Leader Class Grindor, and Ravage. Overall, I really, really like this particular set. I know that many perhaps won't be all that thrilled with this, as essentially it is just a repaint of Blackout, and I know there were some that were hoping for more retooled elements than just the hands, but to me the hands make all of the difference, especially as far as posing is concerned and how robot mode was concerned. Blackout definitely did look a little goofy with those Muppet-esque hands, and now that you actually have full range of motion in those hands for Grindor, it really does set him apart from Blackout in my opinion. The colour scheme isn't all that different as far as the grey plastic is concerned, and I maybe would have liked to have seen a slightly more darker and muted colour scheme for Grindor, but once again we don't really get a great look of the character in the movie, so I can't say for certain that that would be accurate to his appearance in the film. I think the rusty paint apps look really well done. Once again, it just helps to set him apart from Blackout, and I do actually recall seeing some rusty parts on Grindor, so that really is accurate. I think the articulation for this guy is pretty decent considering the mass, the bulk, and the actual overall design. His transformation, as always, is on the more complex side, and if I had any critiques, it's that Hasbro do still appear to be using that rather flexible, pliable plastic instead of hard, rigid plastic that we've got for War for Cybertron, which means that some of the tabs don't all the time want to lock in as securely as the likes of perhaps, say, Leader Class Galvatron from the War for Cybertron line, but I think that's a minor critique for what is otherwise a really good looking figure. And here in the copter mode, I think he looks exceptional, really nice looking realistic details, as well as of course some fantastic sculpt work, and he is a massive piece, one of the biggest helicopter live action movie figures that we have gotten of all time. And then we turn to the new minifigure included, that being Ravage, and I think this guy is great. Once again, he helps to fill out a void in the collection, which maybe would have gone unfilled if Grindor here never came packaged with him, so I'm glad they included that. I think the sculpt work looks great, the paint work for the most part is really nice, and I think the articulation for such a small character once again is really, really well done. So overall, if you are a live action movie completionist, a die-hard fan of those Michael Bay movies, then Grindor here honestly is a must-have. He's one that I've always wanted in the collection. Despite him being a repaint, he is one of those characters that appeared in Revenge of the Fallen, unlike a concept character, so for me, he was always a must-have, and I always thought that he was going to come, especially when we got Blackout. It was just inevitable. This guy is essentially a clone, and it's easy money for Hasbro, so definitely really happy with this figure, and just happy in general to be taking a look at some more live action movie figures. I really do like the 86 line as well as the War for Cybertron line, but you guys all know that the live action Michael Bay movies are truly my bread and butter, and it's awesome for me to actually revisit some of my favourite character designs from those live action childhood movies. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do let me know down in the comment section below. Let me know on whether or not you're going to be picking Grindor up or giving him a miss. I also think this figure will be great for those who perhaps weren't into Studio Series when it first came out, so for those who missed out on Blackout, this is a great alternative, especially as it appears to be the superior mould considering that it now has the articulated fingers. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.